understood what you were saying about Nikita. I understood a lot of that Mandarin. You said he's ugly, right? You said something she's ugly. That's what's going. Oh, come on. Don't mess with me. But the thing is, like, for me, I like a lot of really pointless, silly, just what's the point of listening to this rubbish kind of humor? I just want to laugh. I think it's hilarious, you know. So in my comedy, a lot of it, you listen to it, you laugh, and you were like, oh, I didn't feel like I never grew as a person, but I had a good time. So that's my style. That's how I realized it, was watching a lot of comedy, going like, I like him. I don't like him so much. I like him. Okay, he's a waste of time, but I enjoy his humor. So find your own style, because as you write, you will start realizing that is your style, and you'll be writing for that style. If you realize you like very serious styles, you want to come up on stage and be like, hi everyone. Okay, today, my job is to make you laugh. Thank you very much, I'm done. That could be your style. Some people are very shy, you know. They're like, oh, hey everyone, hey, okay, hey. No, don't laugh, I'm not there. So you can have that. Everyone's got their own style, but you need to know. Once you know your style is a certain style, embrace it, and you will not be afraid of like, oh, I shouldn't say, oh, okay, no, you know. Your style is your style. Sometimes having a little bit too shaking your hand, being nervous is funny. We have a comedian who won last year's English. He's a Chinese comedian. His English is extremely bad. It's very poor, but he won because of that, because it was so funny. Right? Who wants talent anymore? But let me give you an example. Okay, so he's a little chubby guy. He speaks very poor English. He's like, well, hi everyone. Okay, today we'll talk the jokes. Okay, sir, can you tell me your name? Jimmy. Oh, can you talk slower? However, if I came up like, hey man, what's your name? And you say Jimmy, I'm like, oh, could you talk a bit slower? People would think I'm retarded. Right? It works for him because he embraced that style. That's his style. He's that young kid. Hey everyone, hello, nice to meet you. I can't be like, hey everyone, nice to meet you. Everyone's like, you're an idiot. So another thing, your style. Once you have your own style, you will start writing that way. People will know you for your style. Oh yeah, I love his style. You know, he's something about him that I really like. And once you have that, you will start writing. You'll be performing with that style, and people will become your fans because of your style. Just like people in Hong Kong, like Jiwa, Zhang Dameng, all these people like them for their style. They want to go watch a show because it's him. Not because he's super funny, but because I like his style. Very often, there was a show on TV called Talking Funny, which hosted 4 comedians. Ricky Gervais, Chris Rock, Louis C.K., and Jerry Seinfeld. Talking Funny is very, very good. These 4 guys were talking about just comedy in general. And one of them gave the idea of like, do people come to watch, to hear what you have to say because it's you? Or do they come because they think you're funny? And 9 out of 10 times, people come because it's you. They like your style. They like you. They want to come and be entertained by you. Even if I told you there's another comedian next door much funnier, they will still say, no, I like this guy. You know, even if someone told me, oh, you know what, Zheng Dameng is funnier than Wang Jiwa, I might say, you know what, I want to go watch Wang Jiwa, just because I like them more. You know, that sort of thing. You like someone for their style, for their personality, you will want to support it, and you'll want to enjoy it. It's a reverse thing. Once people start to know you, or they like your style, they will come and be ready, like, you're going to make me laugh, man, all right, let's go. You will have that, you know, but whereas if it was reversed, you know, people don't know who you are, they're like, all right, make me laugh. That's all it's called style, right? You can ask Kenneth, we've had many, many shows, we have people in the audience just sitting there go like, and they're holding their laughter. They're like, it happens. But when people like you, they will, you know, he deserves me to laugh at his stuff, you know. So that's another thing, pauses and everything. Another thing is that have the habit of always carrying a notebook with yourself. Because another thing I realized with writing humor stuff and comedy and everything, it doesn't happen because I sat down and decided I'm going to write something funny. It doesn't happen that way. very often I cannot be sitting staring at a window and say, what's funny about a window? Let me write it, It doesn't happen. But I get a lot of funny ideas just in general life because I say, that's pretty interesting. Okay, that's pretty funny. And when you gather all those things together, digest it, and then come back and use that together. When you rewrite it, then you will write something funny. Let me give you a good example. I talked about the shoe polishing and all that, right? So another thing I realized is that in Hong Kong, a lot of the motorcycle delivery men in Hong Kong don't wear helmets. The Indian motorcycle delivery men, they have a turban on. They don't have helmets on. So one thing I realized is that legally in Hong Kong, you do not need to buy a helmet if you have a turban. It's true, And now, one thing I have a whole bunch of running jokes about my dad. My dad is the cheapest guy in the world. So I thought, wait, that's pretty funny. What if I applied that concept onto my father? Let's say I was talking about my life story, and I said, my dad is so cheap. He drives a motorcycle. Now, we are Hindus. We don't have a turban on. But he realized in Hong Kong, if you have a turban, you do not need to buy a helmet. So he changed his religion. $200. So these things were funny because I saw it at the moment. Had I gone home and said, okay, what's funny about turbans? I would not be able to generate that. So have that habit because there's another, I'm sure you've heard of, people always talk about the opportunity knocks on the door of people who are ready for it. A lot of these things, you have to be ready for comedy. If you tell yourself, I'm going to write something funny this week, everything's going to be funny. There's a simple exercise that if I told you, notice everything that's blue color in the world, you will suddenly see, oh my God, there's a lot of blue color stuff, But how come you never noticed it? Because you never were ready to pay attention to blue color. Same with comedy. If you tell yourself, I need to write something funny, you will start noticing funny. Is that funny? Is that funny? Is that funny? Is that funny? You start noticing this, For example, I saw like in the construction on the streets, you know how they have the big yellow sign with the date of due, when it's going to be completed and everything, sorry for the inconvenience. And all they have is just a drawing of a guy doing this. I'm sorry, Like, that's okay. Like, once you put a picture of a guy and just say, I'm sorry, it's okay. So if I want to do something, let's say I want to do something ridiculous, just like block the road, I just put up a sign, oh, sorry. So, these things, if you twist it that way, it can be funny. So again, going back to what I talked about, again, set a punchline, the pauses in what you're saying, the writing, the forcing yourself to go past the comfort zone of just writing what you think is funny, but really like, what is funny? What's the perspective? Another thing I also recommend you do is you force yourself with different perspectives on everything. Let's give you an example. Let's say a taxi, all right? Let's say you have to write a speech about taking the taxi in Hong Kong. Now, everyone is going to first think of sitting inside the taxi, right? That's the first thing you'll be thinking of. I'm sitting in a taxi, what's funny about a taxi? However, a taxi has different perspectives. You could be inside, you could be driving it, you could be in the front seat, you could be in the back seat, you could be waiting for a taxi, you could be in the taxi, looking in the mirror, seeing the taxi behind you, you could see the taxi in front of you, the taxi on the right, on the left, you could be looking at the mirror on the side of the taxi to see the taxi behind you, all these different angles, right? And every angle has something new about it. For example, if I were, let's say, sitting in the front of a taxi, looking at a taxi in front of me, what would I see? I would see the taxi, I might see the back of the head of the taxi driver, and I might see the license plate. So if I had to think of something funny about that, I would say, what if one day I saw a taxi whose license plate was just BUS, bus? It would be like, the taxi whose license plate is bus? That doesn't make sense, So that's one idea. Let's say I'm sitting in the front, driver next to me, and on the dashboard, he has a lot of phones. We've all seen like the Batsy Pixie, they have the phones on the driver's thing. What if all those phones were iPhones? Wouldn't that be cool? But like, hey, iPhone 4s, it's ridiculous, right? That's another idea you can have, Let's say you were sitting in the front of the taxi, and he has one of the air fresheners, maybe a little box of perfume or whatever, and it's automatic. Like, if you see in the toilets, they have the one that suddenly goes by themselves, What if I went to the front of the taxi, sat down, closed the door, and went, what are you trying to say, Right? So all these little things about taxis, because you force yourself to see it from different angles. Let's say I was trying to get a taxi, I couldn't get a taxi, taxi driver drives by me and all that. So a lot of these different things that you think of, but you force yourself to visualize the different perspectives. So now not only have you thought of, let's say, 10 different things about taxis, now you got to imagine the taxi from different angles. And every angle, force yourself to find at least 1 to 2 things that are interesting, that may be interesting or that are unique. All right, that's another thing. One more thing that I like to do with all my writing is that I like to what I call random association, where I kind of bang 2